Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So we are now officially about to enter into the third wave of the unemployment tax refund payments. Now, if you guys have received a huge congrats, but maybe before you or stay, if you guys happen to still be waiting, because I think that there are still actually a lot of people that are still waiting. But regardless of whichever side you are, maybe comment down below your state, even though I know it is a federal program, but it's just the more info, the always better. And whether or not you have received your tax refund, and maybe also which program, or rather which filing status you currently file under. So in other words, whether you are a single filer, a married couple, a head of household, or you have kids or anything like that, because that's probably going to be the part that will be the most important in terms of knowing when specifically you should be receiving, or maybe have already received your unemployment tax refund if that happens to apply for you. But in today's update, I pretty much just want to talk about who's expected to receive it next, because as a huge recap is that in the very first wave, which is basically at the very end of May, which is the original deadline that the IRS originally gave for when they're going to be starting to send out the first amount of payments, I believe is that they only sent it in the end to probably about like 1 out of every single 10 people. I did make polls on my channel page, so if you guys are interested, or if you guys have already voted, huge thank you there. I made another one today so you guys can kind of check to see where everyone else and their current status is when it comes to receiving it. But the idea is that I believe in the very first wave, which is like the last week of May, only like maybe 1 out of every single 10 people, I'm pretty sure, got it. And then what happened was in the second wave, which is last week, so the very first week of June, the really great news is that we started to see a lot of people start to confirm that they were finally able to officially see their unemployment tax refund. Not just that they were going to receive it and that it was stuck on pending, but physically finally settle into their bank account so that they know that it happened. But at the same time, there are still, of course, a lot of people that are still waiting, which is what today's video is going to be about. Now, I do also want to maybe just state one quick thing is that a lot of these payments, some people were kind of wondering about it, is that they actually come separately, in the sense that you guys are supposedly going to expect to be receiving a federal tax refund, which is the one that we're talking about in the last couple of videos and in today's video. But you guys will also likely be getting a state tax refund, but that's going to be a little bit later on. Maybe I'll touch up briefly, very briefly about that if that happens to you, and because I know almost every single person should be waiting for the tax refund on the state level, just because they haven't come out yet. So we're going to touch up on that. But today, it's pretty much just going to be about the third wave, who's going to receive it, any important details, and a little bit about that. So we're going to get started right away. But as always, real fast, maybe before we begin, if you enjoy content like this, consider smashing the like button, subscribing, and hitting the bell to join in. Huge thank you if you guys have been here for a while. We did also actually recently just reach 15,000 subscribers. It's crazy to really think about it. So huge thank you if you guys have been here, especially if you guys have been here for a while. And welcome, and consider subscribing if you're brand new here. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, or the status as we have just mentioned, or honestly just about really anything at all. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So entering into this week is the group of people that are going to be expected to now receive it this week are pretty much going to be married couples. So if you happen to be a married couple filing jointly, and also just pretty much any single filer that maybe was not able to receive it the first 2 weeks that are still waiting, because they did actually report that they are still running through a lot of different payments. So if you currently are going through a delay, there are several reasons why this might have happened, specifically if you happen to be a single filer. Because if you happen to be a joint filer or married couple, then you're probably hopefully with everything staying on schedule, going to be receiving either this week or next week. But when it comes to a lot of the single filers, I believe the story of what ended up happening is that they just ended up receiving a lot more taxes that they had to process than that they had originally believed. So they went through a lot of delays by that. It's even more true if you happen to file using certain tax softwares. Like I believe TurboTax did run into delays. I believe HR Block, I don't remember exactly for sure, but I'm pretty sure HR Block. But I just know a lot of the very popular tax softwares, they pretty much went through some kind of delay with processing payments where they were not able to get to every single person. So if you happen to still be waiting, just know is that there's a lot of people, even single filers, that are still waiting. So there's people essentially with you. Now, a huge clarification, as we kind of just mentioned, but just to make sure, you know, everyone's on the pages, is that essentially is that the tax refund that you are going to be getting now, or will be getting, or have already gotten, if you guys, huge congrats if you guys did, is going to be specifically on the federal level. So someone was asking about like whether the payments come together or they come separately. They come separately. So I think that's the really huge thing is that you're going to be getting one right now, which is on the federal level. Now, when it comes to the state refund, the one thing to note, as we kind of have mentioned, is that do notice that only certain states are doing it. So some people were still asking around. So for example, if you happen to be in New York, and there are actually select states, actually I'll throw up this map right here. This is the map that you might have seen if you've been following around this channel for a while now. Maybe consider subscribing if you guys haven't and you guys are interested in it, of course. But essentially is that it should pretty much highlight which states are currently doing it on the state level and which states are not going to be doing it on the state level. I know, for example, like New York, and I'm biased and I only say this because I know there's a lot of people from New York, including me here, but you can also see a lot of the other states as well, is that there are select states that will not be doing it on the state level. So as a result, it does mean that you guys will still be able to get a refund. So that is the really great news that applies to every single state, but just only on the federal level. And I think that's the big thing to know. And that also kind of adds into maybe another huge thing to clarify is that when it comes to the amount that you will likely be receiving, as we have kind of mentioned before, is that for most people, they're going to be essentially covering $10,200 worth of taxes, and that for most people, it will come out to be between $1,000 to $2,000. However, I think it is important to notice is that all of these dollar values that we're talking about, they're really only applying on the federal level. So because of this reason, it's actually possible that you may actually end up getting even more than $2,000 beyond that. So some people were kind of saying, well, am I doing this whole thing just for $1,000? And for a lot of you guys, that may very much true, but there actually may very much be people that might even potentially at the very end of all this be getting even more than $2,000. The most likely groups of people that will probably have that happen is if either you were unemployed, but before you were unemployed, you were working some kind of very high paying job. It probably will have to be something in the six figures. So like, you know, in that range. So you either happen to be in a very high tax bracket. That's probably the one most common reason. Or if you come from a state that has very high taxes and that is also actually doing the state refund with unemployment in your specific state, then you can actually potentially get even more than $2,000. I don't think most people will be getting more than $4,000. I would probably say the most extreme case, it's probably going to be like in that range. Because I believe is that they only recently released a report that they have about 2.8 million tax refunds ready to start to deliver and process right now. And keep in mind is that if you guys have been here for a while, since last year, maybe it's a huge throwback when you think about it, but I believe that inside of our country, if I remember correctly, don't fully quote me, I can probably have to get back to confirm, but if I remember correctly, I believe about 50 to 60 million people inside of our country was unemployed at some point last year. Even if it was just for like 2 weeks, at the very peak, in terms of like the very peak of unemployment, I believe that there were probably about like 40 million people unemployed, and this was probably like the very beginning of the lockdown. We're talking basically about like spring of last year when like everything was shut down, the streets were quiet, you know, half of the news was about people, you know, falling to like a pandemic, lives and everything that was literally going on, the economics, people's jobs, like everything was just, that was pretty much the peak. So I believe right now the report is that they have about 2.8 million tax refunds ready to start to send or have already sent out either during the last 1 to 2 weeks or this upcoming week that's about to come out. But because of that reason, it shows you is that there's actually a lot of reports that they're still actually currently going through to process. So if you are still waiting, just know that we're all probably part of the majority. And I think that's the big thing to note. And this is actually also even more true if you are someone that had to get something adjusted with your tax refund, because as we have kind of mentioned is that every amendment, more or less, with a couple exceptions, but the majority of them, they are going to be automatic but not necessarily immediate. So also another huge thing, and that's kind of why we mentioned, is that if you happen to have a child of some kind, it is very likely that they're going to be trying to use your tax return in order to try to add or start to send out payments, not this month, I believe they're starting next month, for the child tax credit. So because of that reason, the great news is that at least you'll be getting more money coming in soon. But it's also because of that reason, they may also lead to a little bit more delays with getting your regular tax refund. But that's pretty much just what I really wanted to just cover in today's update. So if you guys are still waiting, I'll put some other videos at the end that hopefully cover other parts of unemployment if you guys haven't checked that out, such as like about the get back to work bonus, which states are now ending it, what's coming next, and then maybe just some general news that if they are of interest. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well. Remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully found it insightful. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell. As always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and I hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.